All right, guys, what's up? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. And in just a matter of hours, as of the time of this recording, XDefiant servers will permanently shut down for good. We knew this day was coming for months now, and it just so happens that, as of the time of this recording, tomorrow will be that day. And instead of taking a beating a dead horse approach to this commentary, I'm going to go in a slightly different direction, especially here in the beginning, and then we can focus on some of the more sentimental stuff as I get into the closing of the video. But I want to help keep the XDefiant spirit alive by using Splitgate 2 to do so. However, I am not talented enough to be able to do it. Now, obviously, I'm pretty sure somebody thought of the idea well ahead of me, and they're probably working on it as we speak, probably. But I was talking to somebody a few days ago in the DMs, somebody who actually, creates maps in Splitgate 2. I was talking about how much it would cost for me to pay them for their time in order to create some of the best XDefiant maps on Splitgate 2. And I think in Splitgate 2, they would also play very, very well, because even though XDefiant was an arcade shooter, it did have some arena vibe into it. We were calling it an arena arcade shooter anyway. So I think there are definitely maps in the game that could play very well. I would argue that pretty much every map would actually play very well, especially if you do a couple of changes here and there. I know that some Call of Duty and Halo maps have already been remade using the Splitgate 2 map editor, which I think is really, really cool. But I would probably, I think that doing the same for XDefiant would not only be good for, gameplay of Splitgate 2, but I think it would also be good in a sentimental way to keep XDefiant's spirit alive, because there are people to this day that still haven't even heard of XDefiant, or once they heard that the game was going to go under, they just decided to never give it a shot. And of course, they couldn't give it a shot because new downloads were not permitted, which was, just goes to show you, man. But there are about 6 or 7 maps I have in mind. It would be a map to map thing as far as payment is concerned, from what I was told, and I was told that it wouldn't be too expensive. So who knows? Maybe we can do them all. But there are 6 or 7 maps that I personally have in mind, and this is what I want to use this video here to kind of get your vote on which maps you want to see the most. And if you could please put a number next to the map in terms of the one you want to see the most being number 1, and then your number 2, and et cetera, et cetera. And with some of the maps in XDefiant, it's really tough to choose a number 1 or number 2 because there are so many great maps. But I would have a hard time as well. But in any given order, the maps that I would like to see the most are as follows: Arena, Attica Heights, Liberty, Noodleplex, Pueblito, Showtime, and I'm going to throw a curveball here because I never played on the larger maps because I just preferred the regular game modes. Times Square. I think Times Square not only had a nice look to it, but I also think that Times Square would also play well in Splitgate 2. And not gonna lie, guys, I've absolutely fallen in love with Splitgate 2. It was something that I never saw coming, and for me personally, it actually mirrors what XDefiant tried to do, but without the handicaps, because XDefiant had the kind of devs that we have here in Splitgate 2, with a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm, very community driven. But Splitgate 2 is not limited in the way that XDefiant was, and thank God. Splitgate 2 is its own boss. Their CEO knows video games in and out. These guys know what they're doing. It's very community driven. The devs are very passionate people. There's transparency and stuff like that. And the thing is, when XDefiant came out, which was a year or so, give or take, before Splitgate 2's beta released, with granted the fact that these devs in XDefiant were very very limited because of Ubisoft, and then God knows how many other ways they were limited as well. Maybe in a few years, we'll find out more details, after it's long gone or whatnot. Maybe some devs will come out and they'll talk a little bit more in depth about everything. Despite that, they were the first up to the plate, and despite the fact that they were limited, I have to say that they did a pretty damn good job. Some of the devs on the XDefiant team actually showed up on stream. I'd say at least 3 of them, and I tip my hat to those guys. Those guys did their absolute best to try to release the best game that they possibly could to the community. And there was moments of greatness for sure, but of course there were also moments of problems. However, we also saw slow but steady improvements despite limitations, and that's, what more can you ask from anybody other than the fact that they're doing their best? You know what I mean? And they gave it everything they've got, with what they had. And it really sucks that things didn't work out. Now, instead of beating a dead horse and going over, why things didn't work out, we already know, right? And in closing in this video, I want to say that, XDefiant is 100% responsible for this channel coming back to life. I was a Call of Duty comment. There's a lot of you that are new here because of Splitgate 2, so I'm going to do a quick little rundown. For about six and a half, maybe 7 years or so, I was a Call of Duty commentary channel. After the first 1 or 2 weeks of Vanguard, I put Call of Duty down for good, and I never touched it again to this day, and nor do I plan to ever again. And then I hear about XDefiant, and way before it comes out, I start covering it, and my channel gets more traction than it ever did. And then lo and behold, fast forward, a year later, my channel more than doubles in size, maybe even nearly triples in size, because I actually did have a few hundred more subscribers, before I stopped, and the thing is, when XDefiant was announcing shutdown, when they announced that they were sunsetting, it's like, okay, I'm going to grind the game until server shut down. But as time went on, I lost a lot of passion because of the fact that the game was already pronounced dead, pretty much, and we knew that this was coming. And it was like, I said to myself, man, as much as I'd like to grind this game, at the same time, it just feels like it lost its spirit. You know what I mean? And the fact that they announced the shutdown just killed it for me. And despite the fact that I haven't touched the game in months, I think my level in XDefiant pretty much speaks for itself. I ended up reaching a 301, which is more than most, and I played the crap out of it both on and off stream. I gathered a ton of footage, a lot of it which has obviously been deleted, if not all of it, to create space in my hard drive. And then once I walked away from, XDefiant, I basically, focused on my second channel, which gained a lot of traction. And then after looking at Splitgate 2, it's like, okay, this looks interesting. And then after looking at it even more, I was like, okay, this game's going to be next. And lo and behold, I certainly made the right decision. I'm not just talking about because of YouTube, but because of the fact that the game absolutely exceeds my expectations. So with that being said, I wanted to say a special thank you to the XDefiant devs for giving it everything they've got, and to say thank you so very much to them. And even though XDefiant will no longer be around, its memory, its spirit will be remembered. And I think Splitgate 2 is definitely a way to pay homage because of their map editor. And like I said, I'm sure somebody's probably already working on recreating XDefiant maps on Splitgate 2 already as we speak. And if not, I want you guys to tell me which maps you want to see the most, and we can make it happen, because that's what I want to do for the game, because the game has done a lot for me as far as the YouTube channel is concerned. From an entertainment perspective, it's done a lot for me. I mean, I put in so much time into the game, so it's the least I can do from a sentimental standpoint. And like I've stated before, try not to be sad because it's gone. Instead, try to be happy that it happened, because, we can dream about how XDefiant could have been if it was given, the full support from Ubisoft, or if things were better, in Ubisoft, or if XDefiant was its own developer like Splitgate 2 is. We can make dreams. We can dream about that and talk about that forever. It makes great conversation. It's good fantasy to have, but that's not the reality we live in. And the fact is that we have to move on. We have to move on. And, that's basically how life is, It's filled with moments like this at times. And there are times where you just have to realize that it is time to move on. So, again, a big shout out to the devs for XDefiant. Thank you very much. And Splitgate 2, in terms of everything that you guys are doing, from a development perspective, from a gameplay perspective, and everything that we haven't seen yet. I'm excited for the future. And please, please do everything in your power. You know, Splitgate community, both devs and non-devs alike. We need to do everything in our power, especially being in a better position now with Splitgate 2, to not let something like this happen to this wonderful game that we are currently playing now. So with that being said, guys, I want to know everything in the comment section down below. Don't forget to let me know your top few maps. And yeah, again, thank you all for the amazing support. Thank you to all those of you who supported me during XDefiant, who continue to support me here on Splitgate 2. And thank you to the Splitgate 2 community for allowing this channel to continue to move forward. And as always, guys, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen. I hope you enjoyed the video. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.